Welcome, normally I would say inside Top of the Hill Restaurant, and boy, we wish we were there for another season of Mack Brown Live. Excited, though, to be with you in these new circumstances in this new world. Joined remotely by the head coach of Carolina football, Mack Brown. Coach and I are going to be here for the next hour, and there's a lot of different ways you can consume the show. Maybe you're listening on the Tar Heel Sports Network, a radio affiliate. We're in our normal time on Monday night at 7 o'clock. You might be listening via a podcast feed the next day or in the future, or you might be watching us as well on Go Heels or on YouTube, and that will be available every week the day after Coach and I record the show. And we have a lot to talk about today. Of course, you're going to hear a bunch from Coach Brown. Plus, also, if you are listening to us, you're going to hear a piece of an interview with former Tar Heel quarterback Chris Keldorf as well, coming up a little later in the show. But Coach, great to see you. Sorry that we're so far away, but I guess this is just the new normal, at least for now, right?
Well, Jones, it really is, and we're all getting used to it. We don't like it, and the pandemic has taken a lot of things that we love away. We've lost some people, we've lost some friends, we've obviously lost jobs. There's people that have lost their houses. So as difficult as some of these things are for us, or uncomfortable or unique, because we're really going to miss our crowd down at the top of the hill, it still gives us an opportunity to play.
Coach, what have these last few months been like for you personally and for your team?
Personally, I think it's charged me to do a great job leading our coaches and our team, because it's so unique and so different. And we didn't know whether we were going to play or not. So you start looking at the great job that John Swafford, the presidents and chancellors in the ACC, our commissioners done, the head coaches, the athletic directors, to go slowly through a process to get us to this point where we're going to play this weekend. But we've had to navigate those waters with young people in so many different ways that didn't know whether we were going to play or not. How do you eat? How do you meet? How do you shower? How do you get in the locker room? How do you travel? How do you practice? With social distancing. So there's so many things that have come up in our lives that are changed, but I've been really impressed by the incredible young people on our team, because they've been resilient. They've been on this roller coaster, and every time we throw something at them, hey guys, you're going to have to get tested 3 times a week. You're going to have to get tested Friday afternoon. I got it, Coach. I want to play. So they've been absolutely amazing, and they've picked me up, very honestly. The staff and the players have picked me up, because I was more down over all this stuff than they were. So I've been very impressed with their response to this awful crisis.
Coach, was there a time that you were concerned that this season would not happen, or that you guys would not be able to play?
Yes, that's been the toughest thing, Jones, is the up and down, the roller coaster ride. It's just coaches are habits of routine. And I like to be scheduled a year in advance, and I know exactly where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing. And the only thing that's been certain about 2020 is uncertainty. Because everybody says, I said, answer this for me. Why do we have to do this? I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll see. So really, until last week, I wasn't sure that we were going to play. We had to prepare to play. We had to keep talking to our players about we've got to prepare to play. But when students came back, we knew that was going to be an issue, and the presidents and chancellors all handled that well. So here we are. For the first time, really feeling like, we better be ready, because we're going to be out there Saturday.
You talked about some of the adjustments and just things that seemed routine or everyday in the past that now you have to think about a little bit more. Have you had to adjust anything as far as how you coach or the way that you handle your team on the field because of everything that's going on?
Yes, and we've talked to people who have coached in the first couple of games here during the season, and you have to constantly talk about social distancing. So that's one thing on the field. Put your mask up, keep your helmet on, spread out, man. Get your 6 feet. So that's a new discipline guideline that we have that we've never had before. But the two things that coaches who have been through games have said, the mask is an issue with communication, and you're spread out so much further on the sideline because you've got the coaching area, the bench area is from the 15-yard line to the 15. So you've got a lot more space, so it's harder to find guys, especially with special teams. And the other thing that they've said is the two other things is that wearing a mask, it's harder to communicate during the game because you're excited and you're talking and nobody's hearing you. And the other thing, it's been very difficult for players to hear the whistle because the officials have the handheld whistles now, and that's been more difficult than in the past.
Coach Brown and I are going to talk some just football during the show today, and excited to get to that, but a few more things here, Coach, surrounding the season. You did have an extended preseason camp because of the schedule changing in the middle of it. How did that affect things? How did you try to handle that change in the schedule when you thought you were going to be playing last Friday, and now you're not playing, of course, until this upcoming Saturday?
Our coaches did a great job, Jones, with the extended schedule of getting the exact same number of practices that we would have had if we had not moved the schedule back. So we normally get 25 practices in before our opening game. We've gotten 21 right now. We'll have our 25th one on Friday. So we did a great job of making the adjustments where we got as much work done, but over a longer period of time. And we felt like that because there were inconsistent times and delays this summer, because some of the guys didn't have places to work out in the spring, that we wanted to be able to work the guys in more slowly instead of just throw them back out there, because we thought we'd have a lot of soft tissue issues with muscle pulls and strains and such, and we really haven't. Our doctors and trainers and our strength coaches went back and looked at the walkout with the NFL and to talk to doctors who at that time were trying to move players back in after they'd had less workout. So I really feel like that our medical team, our strength coaches, our nutritionists have all prepared our guys well for Saturday.
Coach, one more thing before we get to our first break here. One of the biggest changes, at least for these first couple of games, will be the fact that there will be no fans in the stands in Kenan Stadium. So for the matchup with Syracuse and the game against Charlotte the following week, nobody in the stands in Kenan. Do you have any idea what that may feel like when normally, of course, that's part of what makes game day so great?
Yeah, well, first, Jones, I really hate it for our fans. They've been wonderful. To sell out every game last year really made us have a tremendous home field advantage. We love our fans. Now they've 70% of our fans have either donated the money for their season tickets this year or rolled their money over for next year. That's more than I've heard anywhere else. And they're not going to get to be in the stands on Saturday, and I understand that. So what we're encouraging our fans to do is find a place to watch the game, wear your game day gear, tailgate, get yourself ready, and then scream so loudly at that TV that we can hear you in the stadium. and we've kind of prepared for this, because I stopped the scrimmage the other day and there's nobody there, and I said, okay, look around. Here's your home field advantage. We have none. So it is going to be strange. And the kids, even fourth quarter, they miss our students, so they went down and started high-fiving our students like they were actually in the end zone. The difficult thing for me right now, though, Jones, is I'm responsible for the football family, and that's the families of our players and our players. And right now, our families have been told that they can't come to the game on Saturday, and we're talking about hundreds and lower hundreds, below 500 people that would be in a 50,000-seat stadium, and they need to be there. They've watched their children from very young age grow up and play, and they need to be there for mental support, and they want to be around them after a win to help them celebrate. And if it didn't work out well, they want to pick them up if they're down, and mental health, academic help and support. But also, if one of them got hurt, we play a very physical sport. So I'm really asking the decision makers to go back and revisit the fact that we can have a few parents scattered out, socially distancing, with masks in the stadium on Saturday to watch their sons play.
Certainly seems like that would be a easy thing to fix, and that hopefully Carolina can make that happen so these people can see their sons live out what's been a lifelong dream, to play college football and to do so at Carolina. Coach is going to stay right there. I'm going to stay right here. You stay put, too. We've got a lot more to do. We'll talk a little actual football, too, when we get back here on the Mack Brown Show on the Tar Heels Sports Network. From Learfield, IMG Sports. Welcome back to the Mack Brown Show. My name is Jones Angel. He, of course, is the Hall of Fame head coach of Carolina football, Mack Brown. We're joining you a little different this year, different way, but we are staying as distant as we can and still bring some great content to you. Thanks so much for being with us. And, Coach, I do want to talk football. I wasn't joking about that, but I do need to ask you about one more off-the-field type of thing before we get there. Of course, there's been a lot going on just in the United States here the last few months. A lot of social issues that are relevant to you, to your team. How have you handled these situations with your group of guys?
Jones, once again, I've been so impressed with our players. There is no elephant in the room. When we talk to them, we talk about everything. So we've talked about the use of the N-word and where does that fit in songs or in day-to-day conversation. And we basically decided as a family, a football family, we're not going to use it. And we're not going to have it in songs. And we're not going to sing it because there's no place for it. And especially right now in America, we've talked about the despicable things that we've seen. And maybe things in the past that we haven't seen that are just true racism and being unfair. And the guys and I got together. The staff had an hour-and-a-half conversation. The players and I got together and said, "What do you want to say?" I'm white. I am white privilege at the highest. I haven't felt racism in my life because we don't have it around football. We don't have it in the locker room. It's all family. But tell me what you need. And let's do a video, and because of my position, it'll reach more people. So you tell me what you need said. And some of them said, "Why don't you just say it, Coach?" And I said, I don't know how it feels to be jogging and have to worry about being shot. I don't know how it feels to worry about driving and being pulled over. So I need you to tell me what you think. And when one of our coaches said that his wife was concerned about letting their children get a driver's license, I saw a couple of our players, and not a couple, more than a couple, crying over some of the recent incidents that have happened. I knew it was time for me to listen to them, to learn from them, and speak out and be strong for them, because we're in 2020. We shouldn't be talking about the color of somebody's skin. We shouldn't be talking about race. And we sure should have a country that's fair. And right now, our country is not fair to black people. And even when Black Lives Matter first came out, I said, well, that sounds a little weird because all lives do matter. And then the players have taught me this isn't about white people's lives right now because we're not getting shot. We're not having some officer put their knee on our neck. This is about black lives right now. So it's time for all of us to stand up and do what's right and try to make things that are fair. I've always said, how would I feel if it was my son, my daughter, my grandkids? And let's put it in that perspective. If what we're seeing in some of these despicable incidents across the country would be your family, how would you feel? And I think that tells it all.
Well said, Coach, to be sure. Let's transition from there. Let's talk a little football, Coach. I know this time of year, normally that's all you're talking, but it feels like that's only about maybe 10% of what you get to talk about now. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. That, of course, starts with Sam Howell. How have you asked Sam to try and get better after what was a terrific freshman campaign?
Sam's such a great young man, Jones, that you don't have to ask him much. He usually comes to you and says, I need to fix this. I got to do this. I got to do that. So he wanted to lose a little weight. He wanted to be more flexible in his hips. And he wanted to make more plays with his feet. And he is doing all of that at a very high level. And it's been fun to watch. He's come back with the same work ethic and even a better leader and a more vocal leader right now than he was this time last year, obviously, just being a true freshman when he got here last year. So everything Sam Howell, to me, is better. more aggressive. He's pushing himself even harder if that's possible, and working just as hard off the field mentally in football to try to make sure that he gives our team the best chance to win. So I really think that we're probably ahead of where we would normally be in rebuilding our program just because of him, because we've still got some areas of concern that are around him, but he gives us a chance every week to win.
Coach, what are some of those areas of concern that you have right now around Sam?
Jones, we still don't have enough offensive linemen. Some of them are banged up, and we're still in a position when we're playing Syracuse on Saturday, who's got a new 3-5 defense and going to blitz every time, that we're working with about 6 offensive linemen that we feel like are ready to play Saturday, and you really need 8 minimum, and you'd love to have 10. So the biggest concern offensively is the offensive line and its depth.
You do have, Coach, some pretty decent depth and talent and experience at your skill positions in the backfield and at wide receiver. I would think you have to feel pretty good about those 2 spots with what you have right now.
We do, with everybody back from a very productive year last year. The running backs have continued to be as good as they were last year. Probably they're better, and maybe the strongest unit right now on our team. With Javonte and Michael, those 2 guys have just continued to get better and stronger, and they can catch the ball, they can block, they can do everything, and they're very confident right now. And then you go out to tight end. Garrett Walston's had a really good camp. His preseason has been much stronger than it was this time last year. And then you take just the older receivers, not even counting the younger guys. You take Diami, Daz, Newsome, Diami Brown, and Bo Corrales. Those guys have not dropped off at all. And one of the things you could do even during the pandemic was throw the ball. So the guys still worked a lot in the off season together, throwing and catching. So your linemen are where you probably lost some strength and conditioning without weight rooms when we took our time off on both sides of the ball. But the skill guys shouldn't have much drop off.
Coach, I did want to ask you about one more thing on offense. We'll take a break. We'll talk a little defense after this next commercial. But you do have 2 behind Sam Howell, 2 young and talented quarterbacks. What have you seen from Jace Ruder, Jacoby Criswell, as they've gone through this training camp?
Well, Jace has played so little since he's been here that I just hate he's had such bad luck. He's a great young person and already in our business school and tremendous student and works really hard. So he's been behind what he would have been if he hadn't gotten hurt, but he's doing better. He's working really, really hard every day to be more consistent in the passing game, and thank goodness to this point he stayed healthy. Jacoby Criswell, we think, will be really good. He's just a rookie, and it really hurt both of those young guys that they missed spring practice. So we're having to go through spring practice with them right now to try to prepare them to play. But neither one of them are ready to step in right now. Hopefully they'll be more ready by Saturday.
Saturday noon, Carolina hosting Syracuse in Kenan Stadium. We'll talk about the Orange a little later in the show, but we're going to take a break. Come back, we'll take a peek at the defensive side of the ball, and soon we're going to get to your questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels as well. It's the Mack Brown Show from Learfield, IMG College. Back with the Hall of Fame head coach, Mack Brown. It's his show, Mack Brown Show. Thanks so much for being with us. It's our season opener on the show. We will be here every Monday unless the Tar Heels have a bye week. There are 2 bye weeks in the adjusted schedule this year, so we have a show, of course, today. We'll be back with you next week. Then we do have a week off along with the Tar Heels after that, but thanks so much for joining us, however you're joining us today. All right, let's get to our Champion Watch, brought to you by UNC Health, and the team at UNC Health is dedicated to caring for champions of all kinds. That includes you and your family. You can see their lineup at unchealthcare.org/sports. And thought I'd mention the preseason All-ACC nominees. Coach talked about Michael Carter a little bit earlier. Michael, the preseason All-Conference as an all-purpose back. Daz Newsome at one of the wide receivers. And Chaz Surratt, who we'll talk about in just a second, preseason All-ACC as well at linebacker. Carolina in total chosen 3rd behind Clemson and Notre Dame in the preseason poll. And Coach, different expectations, at least from the outside, for your team this year? How have your guys handled those expectations through this camp?
Jones, we think they've handled them really well. They've worked. You wouldn't know any difference. I told them the other day that preseason rankings mean absolutely nothing. It's just the way you finished last year at the end, the momentum that you had, and we probably lost some of that momentum not going through spring practice and even being limited some in the summer. But I've told them now that with those higher expectations, you've got a bullseye on you. And a lot of people now are talking about we've got to beat Carolina, where last year they weren't even talking about us being a factor. So you want the pressure, you want the expectations to be high. But I believe right now they're handling those really well, just watching them work.
All right, we talked a little offense before the break. Let's talk a little defense here. And, Coach, you lost your top 2 players off the defensive line to graduation, with Aaron Crawford and Jason Strobridge moving on. Jason getting an opportunity, of course, with the Miami Dolphins as well. How has that inexperienced group been coming along up front?
They're really doing a good job. You've still got Tamon Fox outside, and we had him last year, and he's our best pass rusher at this time. You've got Tyrone Hopper on the other side, a couple of freshmen that are coming along, but you've also got Chris Collins at the outside linebacker defensive end spots. And then you've got Tamari Fox inside. So the Fox brothers are doing a tremendous job. But you've also got Jaleel Taylor, you've got Ray Vahasek, and those guys will be alternating some. Kevin Hester's done some good things, and we really need to play too deep on defense, especially the big guys on Saturday, because in some cases may not be in as great a shape as we would have been with a different offseason. But at the same time, Syracuse is going to run an up-tempo offense that Dino Babers worked with Art Briles when we were at Texas and coached against him there. So they're going to try to go real fast and get a lot of plays. So you don't want your pass rushers to be worn down. So we'll probably have to rotate guys up inside a lot.
Coach, 2 spots on the defense that seem dramatically different from this time last year. First is linebacker. There were so many questions going into that first game last season against South Carolina when you had Chaz Surratt and Jeremiah Gimmel. Neither of these guys had taken a snap at linebacker at the college level. To now, you not only feel good about those 2, but it seems like you have some players behind them that could step in as well.
Absolutely. This time last year, Chaz Surratt and Jeremiah Gimmel had never played linebacker in a college game. And in fact, Chaz had obviously been a quarterback. And then you lost Dominic Ross to a fight with NC State at the end of the year, so he was suspended for the opening game. So we didn't have a linebacker that had played in a game, and it scared me absolutely to death. I've told the story that Feaster runs up inside with South Carolina, and Chaz goes and misses the tackle in the hole. Feaster goes and scores, and poor Jay Bateman's jumping all over him on the sideline. I said, Jay, he's never tackled in a college game, man. Give him a break. Let's let him wait till at least the second quarter before we jump him for missing tackles. And now he's listed as maybe the number 2 linebacker in the country as far as the draft is concerned. And I want to give Chaz a lot of credit. His brother has decided to opt out this year. Chaz could very easily opt out, and he wants to play. And he wants to improve his draft status. But at the same time, he wants to help this team because he knows that we can have a special year. And then Jeremiah Gimmel's, he's about 230 pounds now. He came in here at 195 or something, and he's working really, really hard to be a great leader. So both of those guys will be better than last year, but we also had to play them every play. So now you've got Kadri Jackson and Eugene Asante that can come in and play at any time. So we should have more rested players on the field, especially in the second half.
Coach, you mentioned opting out, and you did have 3 players who elected to opt out for this season. How did you present that to your team? How did you handle that option with your guys?
Every day we told our guys that this is crazy. It's a crazy year, and everybody handles things differently. Everybody has different family dynamics, and we said if any staff member, any coach, or any player doesn't feel comfortable coming to work every day, you can keep your salary, you can keep your scholarship, and you can continue to go to school, but you don't have to be part of the team. So we've just told them, take the fall off. Dwight Hollier, who's in charge of our wellness, works with each one of those young people to try to make sure that everything in their life is the same as much as they can without football, and that they're taken care of, but then we just move forward. But it was really important to us whether we were going to play or not at that time, because we weren't sure that everybody feels safe and feel comfortable, and no one feel like it's a macho thing, and I don't feel like being their coach, but I feel like I have to. I don't want to quit. Just do what's best for you. And I really feel like that this team has done that. The few that opted out seem to be doing fine, and the team is moved forward without them.
Coach, we talked about linebacker being so different from last year to this year. The secondary, there were times last season you were just kind of grabbing guys and getting them out on the field because the depth was such a concern and you had so many injuries. Boy, it feels like 180 degrees from there now. You seem to have a lot of talented options to work with in your secondary right now.
It's the most improved position on our team. There's absolutely no doubt. In the Duke game last year, we had Greg Ross and Storm Duck as our two corners, and Storm being a true freshman, and that's all we had. We didn't have anybody else that had ever played corner, and Storm gets a concussion right in front of me in the third play of the game, and I thought, no, come on, man. No, you can't do it. So we look at Jay Bateman, our defensive coordinator. He runs over and gets DeAndre Hollins, who he'd worked a little bit at corner that week, and DeAndre said, I don't know what to do, Coach. He said, I just stay over here close to me. You can stay on my sideline. I'll tell you what to do during the game. And he played really well. And we won the game only having two corners or one and a half really at that time. But now we've got 4 or 5 corners that can play. We've got 4 or 5 safeties that can play. So we're better. We've got more depth. It helps practice because you can be more competitive when you've got really good defensive backs going against your really good receivers. It makes everybody better. So I'm really excited to watch those defensive backs play and see how Dre Bly and the corners coach and Jay Bateman, our safeties coach, substitute those guys, because we're going to play a lot of people on Saturday on defense.
Coach, I wanted to mention special teams quickly before we get to our next break. You have some returners at punter, of course, and Ben Kiernan. Your return game has most of its key players returning, plus I know Josh Downs, an exciting freshman, could be in the mix there. Kicker, though, has been an open competition this training camp. What have you seen from Furman transfer Grayson Atkins and your returning kicker, Noah Ruggles?
Both of them have a chance to play on Saturday. Grayson has a great leg, and the ball just jumps off his foot and gets up really high. So right now, Grayson would be the guy that would be the first to walk out there on Saturday, and he had such a tremendous career at Furman, being an All-American. But Noah's hanging in there, and he's competing, so I'm proud of him.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back. If you are listening to us, either on the Tar Heel Sports Network or via podcast, you're going to hear a conversation that Adam Lucas and I had with former Tar Heel QB Chris Keldorf. He guided some pretty darn good teams that Coach had his last time here in Chapel Hill. If you are watching us, Coach and I will be right back, and we're going to start getting to some of your questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels after this. It's the Mack Brown Show from Learfield, IMG College. Back with the head coach of Carolina football. He is the Hall of Famer Mack Brown. My name is Jones Angel. Gosh, we're finally here. It's finally game week. Carolina and Syracuse coming up at noon on Saturday in Kenan Stadium. We're going to talk about the Orange in our final segment. But, Coach, have some questions from Carolina fans who have reached out. And a reminder, as always, you can send us questions either via email. It's asktheheels@gmail.com. Or you can tweet a question right to me. @JonesAngel is the Twitter address. Angel has 2 L's at the end. Coach and I, with us recording it this year, we'll be doing this a little earlier on Monday, so we need those questions earlier in the day. But we do have a bunch to get to here for week 1, Coach, and we'll knock a few of these out. This one comes from Coach Riley. Sent this one in. He said, Coach, could you talk about how game prep is different for you and your staff in the first game of the season compared to a game in the middle of the year when you don't have a previous week's game film to look at?
Yeah, Coach Riley, it's even more unique for Syracuse. We weren't planning on playing them until 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, hey, coaches, jump on here and let's figure out who we're playing. And then they have 7 guys back on offense, so we can at least tell who we're going to play against. They only have 4 returners on defense, so we've had to try to find video of some of those guys. And then they changed both coordinators. It will not make as much difference on offense because Sterling Gilbert is the new offensive coordinator at Syracuse, and he's been in the Art Briles, Dino Babers system before. So they're not going to change much with what they're doing on offense. Defensively, they've gone to a 3-3-5 with Tony White. He came from the Rocky Long system out at San Diego State. Rocky's a tremendous defensive coach that blitzes them from all over the place. So I read in their last scrimmage, they had 10 sacks and 4 interceptions. They got a tremendous secondary. They got some older guys back up front, got some youth in the linebacker spots. But Coach is really right. We're going to have to make some changes during the first quarter because of what we see Syracuse do, and especially with their personnel because we know so little about it.
Coach, a good question here from Justin Steyerwalt. Justin sent this one in via Twitter. He said, since the start of the pandemic and associated restrictions, how have you and your staff found ways to continue to be impactful in recruiting, even though you haven't been able to see guys face-to-face or have camps or things like that?
Justin, it's a great question. We've tried to over-communicate with recruits and families and high school coaches and just do as much as we could do to like have an unofficial visit, but do it by Zoom. So it's been different, but the high school players in our state aren't playing this year until February, so they've got a lot of free time. Mm-hmm. So they're texting us, they're Zooming with us, they're FaceTiming us. So in a weird way, we've had a lot more time to reach out to them and get to know them better, even though it's been virtual, than we normally would have with them playing and us playing and spring practice and spring recruiting. The tougher thing right now is the evaluation of the 22 class. With the eligibility rule changing, where this year doesn't count for anyone's eligibility on your team in college football across the country, you'll probably have fewer numbers when you get back to 22. So you'll have fewer numbers that you can recruit. Some of them may not play at all, so it's going to be more difficult to evaluate, and even the ones that you're evaluating, even in our state, would be in February. And right now, February is a dead period, and we can't go out and watch them. So I really think that we were far enough along with the 21 class that it hasn't affected us much. We lost some players who just said, Coach, I can't wait because we can't come and visit, and they didn't get in here to visit. But a lot of the guys had come to visit last year. We made some early decisions, so it didn't hurt us. But I think it'll be more difficult for the 22 class.
All right, let's sneak in one more here before we take our final break of the show. And, Coach, this one comes from Christine and followed up something you mentioned there. She wanted to know, will more players play this season due to the eligibility changes? And so would you be freer to play more guys since the redshirt option, of course, will be there for everyone?
Yeah, Christine, last year everybody was looking at how can we play this guy in 4 games and still redshirt him, and do you play him at 4 at the first of the season or at the end of the season? And right now, you don't care. You can put him in at any time. It's so weird when we look at our depth chart and our board that this said this year doesn't count. So they're going to be the same age next year in football with their eligibility than they are this year. So it's still crazy for me as I sit and try to figure out, he's going to be here 3 more years. So you start talking about guys like the NFL. He's a 5-year guy. Well, he's a 7-year guy. He's a 6-year guy. So it's just absolutely crazy right now. But it's the first time in a while that we haven't got any freshmen asking about, what about redshirting, Coach? Do you think I'm going to redshirt or am I going to play? If we need them in the game, we're going to play them, and you don't have to worry about redshirting this year or them losing a year.
A unique season, to say the least.
Absolutely.
For college football. But, hey, a season, and that starts on Saturday at noon in Keenan. Coach and I will talk about the opponent, Syracuse, when we come back to wrap up the show. It's the Coach Mack Brown Show from Learfield, IMG College. Originally, under the original schedule, Carolina would have played this past Friday down in Orlando against Central Florida. But with the change, the Heels will kick off the 2020 season Saturday at noon in Keenan. And, Coach, we've mentioned it, Syracuse is the first opponent. And you brushed over this a little bit ago. I have to think, what a crazy moment when you realize not only are you playing a team that was not on your schedule originally, but you're playing that team the first week of the year. How did you try and manage to get ready in such a short amount of time?
Jones, we should be playing Auburn this weekend in Atlanta, and that's what our coaches prepared for 6 months. So then we hoped that when the ACC gave us our schedule, we would at least be opening with a team that we were prepared for, because it would have been on the original schedule for us before the pandemic hit in the spring. But we've got Syracuse, who we weren't planning on playing. We didn't play last year. We don't know anything about. And the coaches have been working night and day to try to figure out their depth chart, who's back, who's not, their schemes. So we at least got to see them some last year because they played teams that we play. So we have some idea. And Dino's one of the better offensive coaches in the country, so people have studied his schemes. So and it's very much what we're doing, so it's not going to be that big a difference for our defensive players. But their defense against our offense, we've had to go back and start watching San Diego State film. So that shows you how far we have to go back to try to prepare for their defensive blitzes.
As Coach mentioned earlier, not just an opponent you weren't prepared for or expecting, but then new coordinators on that opponent as well. So just some different layers on how challenging this prep is to get ready for week one. Coach, are you excited? Are you glad it's finally here?
I am, Jones, and I think there's a number of reasons I'm excited. The players really want to play, and they have gone overboard to work hard to prepare themselves to play, and they would have been absolutely crushed if we didn't get to play. So I'm so excited for them that they want to make this happen. And like I said, kudos to John Swofford and the ACC presidents and chancellors and athletics directors and head coaches. All the head coaches pulled together and had meetings once a week on Zoom trying to make this thing work. So I love the fact that our presidents and chancellors said, let's go slow. Let's go and make sure that we're going to be safe and can do this. But they sure handled this well, and all of our guys are really, really excited about playing this weekend. And I think it's healthy for fans. We need some positives. College football is a positive. People love it. So fans across the country will be watching football that they might not have watched our game or this game before. Everybody's going to be watching on Saturday because we're so excited to get started.
It is noon in Keenan Stadium. Carolina kicking off the season against Syracuse. We will be on the air, Tar Heel Sports Network-wise, at 11 a.m. to get you ready for the game. Coach, we're not next to each other at Top of the Hill. We miss all the folks there, but thanks so much for your time today, and look forward to being with you all season long.
Yep, I can give you a high five from here, but we would have done it next to each other. But let's have a lot of fun, Jones. It's time to take some negatives and turn them into positives, and a lot of negatives out there in a lot of people's lives, and this weekend with college football should sure be a positive.
Thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Coach Mack Brown Show.